Okay, back to stage one here. All right, what I have drawn here: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth. Okay, um, and what these lines depict are different pressure vacuum zones. Pressures of vacuum. Okay, our solar system is essentially in a vacuum created by the sun. These are different pressure zones. Okay, it makes sense. We got space between our planets. They seem to be about the same distance, so on and so forth. Okay. Uh, so originally, when the sun first came around, it's a first pressure zone was created. Okay. Now it's definitely a solid pressure, but the chemical composition of it consists of a specific type of matter grouping together. Now, I personally don't know the chemicals or the elements that are involved in making the first layer or the second or the third. I don't know the actual chemical elements. I just know that they're there. So I'm saying there's a specific range of elements that create the first layer of losing my mind here. Vacuum pressure. Okay. First layer of vacuum pressure, a specific set of elements. Okay. Now, as the sun creates more elements or accretes them, it gets bigger. And since they're heavier elements of a specific manner, they will grow on past and it'll create a stronger vacuum pressure region. Okay, I have them between the planets, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly where the planet will sit in these things, or if it actually sits on the line. So here's the way I see it happening. Okay, I'm just going to bring this up close real quick. Okay, so your sun's here. This is your first vacuum pressure line. Okay, and this line just depicts the next pressure line growing past the first. Okay, so what I believe happens here is when that stronger vacuum pressure line goes past the first one, vortices are created because they are different pressures. Okay, the first line doesn't go away. Those elements are there. That first line doesn't go away. Okay, those elements aren't leaving. It's creating more massive elements or creating more massive elements to be able to produce a stronger vacuum pressure. Okay. Now, when that vacuum pressure grows out beyond the first one, vortices are created. They're different pressures. So vortices are created. Okay. Now in space, a vortice, a spin itself, is actually a positive attraction. There's nothing there to stop the vortice from spinning. Okay, we're out in space. There's no air friction. Okay, so when these vortices are created, maybe they spin off and they tighten up. Okay, when they tighten up, this is the crazy part that I'm still trying to grab a hold of, is they can tighten up and actually become an element themselves, strictly made from pressure, differences in pressure. Okay, so eventually over time, now I know that's a stretch, but eventually over time, all these vortices will group or attempt to group in one area of least resistance. Okay, like I said, there is nothing to stop them from spinning. They're in uh, a an atmosphere which won't slow them down. But because of the spin of the sun at the equator, it seems to be, is where all these vortices seem to settle in. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm still trying to figure out, as this passes through the first layer of pressure, you know, I know there's a point where they settle. Otherwise, we wouldn't have planets. But what I'm trying to figure out is which distance. Let me get rid of this line and this line. Which distance between these different pressures does the planet actually sit? Okay, the higher pressure is pulling it out. Okay, it's actually pulling it out. But once it starts accruing its own mass, when these vortices tighten up and start settling into one place, this thing's going to gain mass and volume, which is going to make it heavier, which makes me kind of think that this orange line may actually be closer to the planet, because there's always this force pulling all these elements, all these vortices out. And like I said, they gather, but I think over time, with the weight of the accumulated mass of these vortices, that they sort of settle in closer to the original vacuum pressure threshold. Okay, and so I would say the same thing could happen for when it gets even bigger. Okay, the vortices come out, and because there's nothing to stop them, again, same thing over again, they collect themselves into an area of least resistance. I think originally maybe it'll start in the middle of these planes. Okay, I think that's where it originally started, but as it gains mass, I believe over time, the vortices will accumulate closer or just beyond the last threshold of pressure. Okay? Is that... I think that's good enough for now. I mean, that's a lot of my theory right there. That's a lot of it. So, I'm going to stop there.